Farmers in the U.S., specifically in the Corn Belt states, are keeping a close eye on Russia's invasion of Ukraine. I spoke to a Purdue professor about the impacts of war overseas is having on our farmers right here in the United States. I also found out what impacts it could create in the long run if the war does continue. The war between Russia and Ukraine may be thousands of miles away, but it does have a direct impact on U.S. farmers.
One of the impacts is on the input cost side.
Professor of Agricultural Economics at Purdue University, Michael Langemeier, says there's two main impacts this war can have on U.S. farmers, with one being input cost.
If we see an increase in gas prices long term because of this conflict, which could happen, that would cause an increase in nitrogen prices, because nitrogen prices typically are highly correlated with gas prices.
One of the specific inputs Langemeier is referring to is potash.
We do import some potash or potassium fertilizer from Russia and Belarus.
But he says that's more of a long-term impact and won't interfere with the 2022 growing season. That's because potash is usually applied in the fall.
And long term, if the conflict continues, that would impact potash prices, which is an important fertilizer input for farms.
But besides input costs,
the second set of important impacts or factors is the impact on wheat and corn prices.
Langemeier says it's an immediate impact since farmers are already seeing those higher prices. He explains why those prices have responded like they have.
If you look at corn, about 14% of world exports of corn come from Ukraine. And so obviously, a very important player when it comes to corn. When it comes to wheat, about 10% of the world wheat exports come from the Ukraine. Another 20% come from Russia.
That means Russia and Ukraine combined have 30% of the world's wheat exports.
Obviously, with this conflict, it's going to disrupt the export markets to at least some degree.
While farmers here in the U.S. are getting their equipment ready for spring planting, Langemeier says just keep these things in mind moving forward.
Make sure you keep your eye on the markets, and if you have 21 crop, think about selling that crop with these high prices that we're currently seeing.
Also, he's encouraging farmers to keep an eye on future prices for next fall.
If you see the prices start to increase because of what's going on in Ukraine and Russia, that might create some marketing opportunities for the 22 crop.
Langemeier says right now the big question is regarding Ukraine's ability to plant. Their planting season is the same as ours, which means planting in the spring and then harvesting in the fall. He said there's a possibility Ukraine might not be able to plant as much crop or plant their crop as timely as they normally would due to that war.